Yo, what is up? It's your boy CJ, and I'm here with Bria today. We're gonna have some fun today. Of course, we're missing somebody by my side, but we're gonna have some fun today. So how you doing today, Bria?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm well. Listen, you've been an anticipated guest on this podcast, if you haven't noticed. So one of my first questions I wanted to ask you is like, how is everything with your faith on campus? Because I know a lot of times it can be hard being a Christian on campus, especially with all these people walking around with different faiths and stuff like that. So how is it being a Christian on campus, and how do you like exemplify that on campus?
Okay. At first, when I first came to MTSU, it was a little bit hard because when I first came, I came in 2019, and I didn't really find any community within that time. So I kind of like ventured off into my own little thing. Yeah. And then once I started professing my faith and like really being out loud and bold about it, I was kind of getting some weird looks at first. Yeah. So I had to like leave those places and like, you know, keep searching for my community. So that was kind of hard. But once I found my community, it was pretty easy going out and evangelizing and just sharing my faith with other people.
Yeah. Have you ever found like any, I don't know, like kind of like any problems with that? Because I know, you know, for me, you know, my first time on campus, I was just kind of like, whoa. Mm-hmm. It's different out here. Like, it was a lot of people and stuff like that. And, of course, I didn't come from, like, a private school or anything like that. But it was just like, whoa, there's a lot of people. So was it ever, like, a real problem for you?
I wouldn't say a problem. Again, kind of just, like, funny looks are like, oh, like, she's really in her word. Or, like, oh, like, you read the Bible. Oh, I thought that was just something you did on Sunday kind of thing. Yeah. But mostly, like, when I go out to evangelize, like, a lot of people are open to hear and receptive of what we're saying. Yeah. And it kind of just plants that seed, and, you know, people are glad to hear what we're telling them.
Yeah. Where do you evangelize at? Or who do you evangelize with?
I evangelize with ENC. And so we go out. Recently, we had the campus missionaries come out. Yeah. And it was like a school that they have somewhere, and they came to evangelize with us, and we went out on MTSU campus, and we went to pretty much any building where we could find people, and we evangelized and told them the good news, and a lot of people were very receptive of it.
Wait, is that the one with like Malcolm and y'all went to WKU?
Yeah.
And stuff like, hey, shout out Big Coop, shout out Malcolm, shout out all of them. Yeah, man. So I know that your dad is a pastor. So how was that like growing up, you know, with your dad being a pastor? Was your mom anything in the ministry, or what was she?
She served over she served over the women's ministry, just organizing their events and spearheading those. That was her main thing. She served in the choir. She's ushered. She's done pretty much anything you could think of. Wherever my dad needed her, she was always there.
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah. So how was it like just growing up with the dad, pastoring, you know, being a PK and all of that? How was that growing up?
Okay, so my dad accepted the call while I was, like, in middle school. But even before that, I don't know if it was how he dressed, because one thing about my daddy, he gonna wear a 3-piece suit, like, always. And so even before he started preaching, all of my friends already thought he was a preacher, so they kind of already looked at me that way. But they also always knew that I went to church. Because I was that friend, like, if you come over my house and you spend the night, pack your church clothes because you come to church in the morning. So that was pretty cool. I didn't really get any, like, pushback or, like, hear anything about it until, like, high school-ish. You know, they gave me the little nickname, PK, Cuckoo, but it wasn't really just anything crazy. They just kind of held you to a different standard and was like, oh, like, y'all really lived that life, like... You know, but it was never anything crazy. It was pretty peaceful, I guess.
Yeah. How did you handle that pressure? Because I know, like, being a PK, you know, there's a lot of pressure on you. You get a lot of weird different looks. Like, okay, you're not supposed to be doing this and this and that. So how did you handle that pressure? Yeah.
I didn't really feel that pressure until I got to college, honestly. Yeah. Because I was just thinking back, and I was like, girl. But yeah, like when I got to college, I didn't really know nobody, and then I had reunited with one of my homegirls from like middle school, high school, and that's when I started, you know, falling out into the world or whatever. And like she'd be like, "Oh, well, I didn't think you want to go because you know you a PK, you go to church, blah blah blah," and I'd be like, oh, you're right. I guess I shouldn't be there. But I would still go because, like, you know, that's freshman year.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I didn't ever just receive, like, any harsh words. It was kind of just like, oh, I didn't expect you to be in this space because you're this. And, again, just being held to a higher standard.
Mm-hmm. So did you, like, I know with your dad being in the ministry and your mom, you know, being in the women's ministry and things like that, did you ever feel like a call to be in ministry as far as, okay, my mom has this legacy, my dad has this legacy, do I, you know, need to fit in somewhere? Do you ever feel like that need to be in ministry?
That didn't start until recently, honestly. Yeah, I didn't feel it before, but the more I, like, got in my word and, like, really followed Christ and gave him my yes, the more I felt it. I'm not 100% sure what it is yet, but I have a feeling what it is. So, yeah, just learning that and just relying on God to, like, tell me what that is and reveal those things to me.
Yeah. So we know that you're a teacher, you know, elementary school teacher. Eagleview, you just told me that.
Yeah.
I said Eagleville. I'm sorry, Eagleview, if you're watching.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. But how is that, you know, teaching a bunch of kids now? Do you try to incorporate faith anywhere you can when you teach them, or do you just kind of like plant seeds here now and then and things like that? So how is that?
A little bit of both, honestly. Like when I go into the classroom, one of the first things I do is I pray over the student's desk before they get there. If there's any student that I know is having like any home problems or anything that's going on, or I just notice something is off about them, I'll always incorporate them in my prayer.
Yeah.
Within the classroom, if I see a kid having a behavior or just having a rough day, I'll pull them aside and I'll talk to them. And then after talking to them, I'll just kind of hold them for a second and ask them if they want a hug.
Yeah.
And then I'll like pray over them. I mean, they might not know I'm praying over them, but yeah. Or if we go on a field trip, I'll try to like plant a little seed here or there. Like one time we had passed a church and one of the kids was like, oh my gosh, like there's a church.
Yeah.
And then like that started the conversation. I was like, oh, like do you guys go to church? And they gave me the answer. And some of them said no. And I was like, oh, well, like, is that something that you'd be open to? Or, you know, like, what is it that you know? And kind of just like trying to start that conversation. And from there, I'd say it kind of blossomed. Because I also play gospel music and stuff before I get into my work day.
Yeah.
And one day, I don't know if I was just too into it or what, but I didn't realize that it was time for school to start. And so I still had the music playing, and one of the kids came in and he saw, he's like my heart reader. So I was just like, okay. So he walked in and he saw the name of the song on the screen, and he was like, I speak Jesus. And I was like, oh, good morning. And then I pressed play, and like every day from there, every time he saw me, he would just like, I speak Jesus, I speak Jesus. And I was like,
crazy.
yeah. And I would ask him like, do you know what that means? And then like he would say that, and then it would start a conversation with other students. And then one day on the eclipse, all of my students were like, is that Jesus? And then like it sparked a conversation, and then like everybody's jumping up and down and saying Jesus, and like it was just really beautiful. Then after that, one of my students, she told me that she was praying with her family, and she felt a warm hug, and she was like, I think it was Jesus. And I was like, yes. And like just from there, like the conversations have just been growing and growing.
Yeah. Well, what made you want to get into teaching? I think that was my main question.
Yeah.
That I wanted to ask. Like, what made you get into teaching?
Honestly, I've wanted to teach since forever. I don't know what sparked the interest. I think it was, I have a big sister. And so when we were little, because I'm thinking about it and I'm just like, that's funny. But when we were little, she would sit me down with her teddy bears, and then she would like pretend like she was the teacher, and she would like teach us. And then when I got like to her age, I started doing the same thing. And then just from there, I guess I always wanted to be a teacher. Then I also had really good teachers at my elementary school, and one of them had like, for their rewards, if you earned a certain amount of stamps, you could earn different coupons, and one of them was like, be a teacher for a day. Yeah. And I chose that one time, and I just completely fell in love with it, and that kind of confirmed it for me. And then ever since then, I've just wanted to be a teacher.
That's what's up. So speaking of teaching, you talked about how your community was important. How has your community helped serve you at MTU or even off campus? How has your community helped serve you?
My community, oh my goodness, they've been a huge help, because that was one of the things that I was praying for. Like, once I like left the world alone and like stepped into my word, one of the things that I prayed for was community. And when God answered that prayer, like, he did exceedingly abundantly, because my community, like, there's nothing that I can't ask them. If I'm feeling down, I know that I can call them, that they'll pick me up. If there's anything I need, like, they just always show up, and they show up deep. So that's just been really helpful to know that I have people who are there for me, and that can pour into me, and I'm not just the only one pouring out, but I'm also, you know, being watered, and vice versa.
So do you ever feel like empty from a sense of pouring out? Because a lot of times, you know, as PKs and as people of faith, you kind of feel empty as far as, okay, I'm pouring out so much into other people, but then when I go home, sit by myself, I'm like, dang, that sucks.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So do you ever feel like there's kind of like a void in a sense? Of course, Jesus can fill that void, but do you ever feel like, okay, like I really need time to decompress and sit away from everything? Do you ever feel that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's mainly on, like, I guess, the days where I've had, like, because, again, I teach. And so if I go out and teach my kids, and then I come and somebody, you know, I need to pour into somebody, and I, like, it's like an immediate thing, then that's when I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I need to take a step back, like, I need a break, like, and that's when I get that feeling of just feeling kind of empty, because I've just been pouring into people all day kind of thing. And I don't mind it, like, I absolutely love it, but, you know, there is that feeling that comes after that.
Yeah, that's what's up. So speaking of, you know, being empty, I know your dad, how did it feel like, because I know you said your dad just recently, you know, became a pastor and things like that. How did it feel when your dad would come home feeling empty, and he was fathering all these other people, but then you would come home and it's just kind of like, boom. Did you ever feel as if you had to share your dad or to share your mom with all these other people?
Absolutely, because I have the kind of dad, he gonna talk to everybody he sees. And it's not gonna be like no little 1-2 minute chat. It's gonna be like a cool little 30 minutes. Like, it don't matter if we're at the grocery store, we could be at school. Like, he's going to find somebody to minister to. And at times it kind of felt like, not like being ignored, but kind of just like like you said, like sharing my dad in times when I wanted him all to myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember those. They just, stay here spirit. If you don't know what stay here spirit is, oh my gosh. We'd be at service in at 12, be there till 1:30.
Right.
Like, oh my God, like, can we please leave? Like, I'm trying to go home, trying to watch my YouTube, eat some popcorn.
Yeah.
Like, do something. But, yeah, so I don't know. Because I feel like a lot of times when you've had to share people, like you've had to share your dad, you've had to share your family, you've had to pour out. I know sometimes you can get down. Have you ever, like, what was the thing that you used to do in order to, you know, get away from those things and, like, okay, like, I'm feeling this in this moment, so I need to get away? What are some of the things that you used to do?
Sports, honestly. I say in, like, grade school and, like, high school, it was definitely sports. Now it's just, like, finding just different stuff to do.
What sports did you play?
I did volleyball, basketball, and track.
You said basketball? You think you played?
That's the only one you heard.
That's the only one I heard. Track? What'd you run the track?
Everything, honestly. I did a little bit of everything. I had one of them coaches where you was gonna try everything.
So the 400 too?
Yeah, that was my race.
That was the worst you
What?
get. When I tell you my legs used to.
That was the best one.
The best one?
Yes, that was my hot spot. 400.
I'm just thinking about it.
It's like, that was the perfect race. It wasn't too short. It wasn't too long. It was like just right. No?
Too long. It was way too long. 400? Legs burning.
I always loved the 400.
I couldn't breathe.
Yeah, that last 100 did get to you.
No, I couldn't do it. But speaking of that, we have this Saturday, the PK Mixer. June 29th, 2024 at 11 a.m. Of course, we're going to have connection. It's free. Come on in. Let's do it. We're live. Led by our very own Bishop J. It's going to be lit. Ages 16 and up. So let's do it. But back into the conversation. So you said that you felt as if you just kind of felt lonely. And then in these seasons, like where you kind of, I don't know, like your freshman year and stuff like that. What are some of the things that you had to, or the holes that you had to dig yourself out of from freshman year to going into college and things like that? What are some of the holes you had to dig yourself out of?
That's a good question. Define what you mean by that.
I mean, we ain't got to go deep into it, but you know what I mean? Just like some of the struggles and temptations and things like that, you know?
Okay. Struggles. I'd say like freshman year was definitely like smoking, drinking. And so just trying to dig myself out of that hole of like feeling the need to do those things. And just feeling the need to like fill whatever voids I had with those things. And trying to understand like how to fill those voids with Jesus instead, and then like also trying to like get to the place where I could like make that switch out and not have that desire to do those things anymore. I'd say those were the biggest two. And then like also dealing like with those feelings of like loneliness and depression as a effect of doing those other things as well.
Did you ever feel like a sense of like a guilty or shameful just because you knew like, okay, my dad's a pastor and things like that, and I'm supposed to be Christian, I'm supposed to be the example. Did you ever feel like, okay, now this is like a double whammy, you know what I mean? Because you already feel conviction from the word and stuff like that, but also dad being a pastor and things like, did you ever like, okay, now I need, like, I really need to stop, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. There wasn't a moment where I didn't feel that conviction, honestly. It was kind of just like a run from it thing. Until it got to the point where I couldn't run from it anymore, and I was just like, oh, okay, like this voice is getting loud, like the conviction is getting stronger and deeper. But there was definitely always a feeling of guilt and shame after, you know, having those nights out, and not even just after, but like during, like while participating. And so once that voice got louder and louder to the point where I couldn't ignore it, I was just like, okay, you got it.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. So speaking of them voices, like, what was the main voice in your life where you were just like, okay, now I need to switch and turn it around? Because everybody has that one voice where it's just like, all right, I'm going to listen to you. Like, one of my main voices was probably my mentor, if he watching, Christopher Jackson. He told me one day, he was just like, Les, you just got to give it up. He was just like, you got to give it up, bro. So what was the main voice in your life where you were just like, all right, like, I got to change?
Probably just hearing like the disappointment in my dad's voice. And then like just seeing the looks. And it wasn't just like, you know, for the small stuff, it was just like for the big stuff. And it was just like, okay, now you know you don't went too far this time. You know what I mean? And just seeing their face and like the disappointment, I was just like, okay, maybe I'm getting a little too deep in. And that's just what really made me turn it around. Then also hearing my friends, like if we were ever out and things got a little, you know what I'm saying? They be like, no, girl, you know, you ain't girl like that. And I just have to reel back in and be like, oh, okay, you're right.
So was it like a continual process, or it was just linear after that? Or was it just like, okay, I'm taking steps toward it and stuff like that?
It was definitely steps. It was kind of like back and forth, honestly, like teeter-tottling on the line. Definitely lukewarm for a season. And then once I found my community, that's when it just really helped, because I had other people to hold me accountable. Like when I was in the world, like I did have my friends who would like say something, but they wouldn't hold me accountable. They just be like, oh, okay, like that's cute, that's cool. And then like back to what we doing kind of thing. But once I found the community, it was just like, no, girl, you know, you're not supposed to be doing that. Like this is what the word say, this is what we're gonna do to fix it. Like I'm gonna be checking in on you, kind of thing. And so that really helped, and just helped me like really keep my head on straight after that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a mixture of both, because I remember me and my homeboy Mitch, like we made a bet. He was like, all right, we're going to do $5 every time you do something, blah, blah, blah. And I ain't going to lie, I don't like to lose. Like, I hate losing. So it would go on for like 4 or 5 months and stuff like that. But then after a while, you're just like, all right, like you kind of get satisfied because, you know, like I know I ain't going to lose because of that mindset. But is it really changing my action and things like that? So once, you know, God takes the action, or God takes your spirit and transforms it And that's what repentance is turning from those actions.
Right.
So once he turns you from that action, it's really not just, okay, I ain't trying to lose money. Now it's like, okay, I really genuinely don't want to do that. So speaking of that, are there some things you just had to turn away from just because you were a PK? Or it was just like,
I ain't gonna lie, it was free for all for a little minute.
Free for all is crazy.
Not okay. There were definitely
free for all.
Okay, there were some limits, but it was pretty much like free for all for a little season. But yeah, I did end up turning away from all that and repenting.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a season it was kind of just free for all. Yeah.
Call of Duty is wild. Call of Duty is wild. Did you ever feel like limitations though? Like were there certain movies that you couldn't watch or certain shows, music?
Yes. Like growing up?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We didn't listen to, I don't know if it was just me or if it was all my siblings, but we weren't able to listen to like Beyonce, really anything that was not Christian music.
Yeah.
Shows like That's So Raven, Where's This at Waverly Place. Those are the main two that I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Scary movies. Any movies with, lustful scenes.
Yeah.
Anything with too much cursing. Like, I think maybe the basics, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But did you ever feel like you were put into a box? Or did you, like now, when you see it, do you feel like, okay, why did you shield me from this? Or like, okay, like you actually protected me from, what the world had? Do you, like which place are you in with that?
I'd say I understand where they were coming from.
Yeah.
For a while, I was like, I don't get why they said I can watch this. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, when it came to, like, horror movies and, like, That's So Raven and, like, Wizards of Waverly Place. But then when I got into my word, I was like, oh, because they was wizards. Like, they was witches. They was, doing all these things. And, like, even with the horror movies, it's like you're opening yourself up to those, those things. And it's deeper than what you're just seeing. Like, it's spiritual. And once I got that understanding, I was like, oh, like, I get it now. I understand. And I was pretty thankful for that. Like, of course, once I grew up, like, I tried to do it on my own. Mm-hmm. But once I learned that, it made me very appreciative of, like, how my parents raised me and just the things that they protected me from.
So, like you said, they never put you in a box, though. Like, it wasn't, okay, you can't go do this and this and this. Like, in my house, you can't do it. Oh, you're saying yes?
Yeah, they did. A little bit.
Yeah.
It was... Like, for a while, because I'm trying to think back, like, for a while, it was like that. But then once I started getting to high school, they were like, okay, like, we'll give you, like, a little leeway to, like, just have my own experience and, like, I guess, like, have my own convictions and, make my mind up. But for a while, it was definitely like, you can't go here, you can't do that, you can't do that.
I definitely feel that.
And I'd be like, Daddy, what can I do? Like, where can I go?
My curfew, when I turned, like, 15, 16, my curfew was 9:30. I was like, bro, what? Yeah. And then finally when I got 17, 18, it was 10:30. I'm like, dog,
same.
Are we serious?
Yeah.
9:30. What are we doing?
Right.
Restaurants don't even close at 9:30. What are we doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good. I mean, a lot of times I feel like that's how I'm gonna be as a parent.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna look into the camera and let it sink in. Cause hey, listen. The last podcast, I said, my son, everybody went crazy. But I was just thinking futuristic. Mm-hmm. Right?
Absolutely.
No laugh. Okay. But that's how I feel like I'm going to be as a parent. Like, set them limitations in. But then let them have some, like, free leeway. Because I already know how it was growing up.
Yeah.
I know how it was growing up. Them church meetings, staying after church and talking to everybody. I ain't going to lie. When my social battery runs out,
it's raps.
It's raps. I just want to be in my bed. But, man, this was a great podcast, great talk, great show. I appreciate you being on with us. Listen, PK Mixer, June 29th, 2024, 11 a.m. Love to see you. Again, I'm CJ. This is Bria. You've been watching the PK Podcast. Peace.